thank you, and thank you so much for being here. I'm not a great speaker. What I really like is having conversations with you guys, and those of you who've been here before knows how we run this. What I'm really looking for is having a good dialogue and a conversation. So today we're going to look at what is in our water. So I think all of us have a sense what's in our water, yeah? How many of you feel really comfortable by your drinking water? Oh, great, good for you. Good for you, Donna. Right, good job. Okay, so what I decided to do is actually look at, so actually this is the resource I use online, and there's a website, so all of you is accessible to all of you. And what I really try to do always in right now and also in the past is to use information from the government, so it's not wild environmentalist sort of like claims. So this is actually a database compiling all the information that all the different water departments have submitted to the Department of Health. So it's just a compilation of information for the Department of Health. So we're going to look at different cities in the area. So this is Pasadena. So the way to read it is that, so the national average is, so we have exceed health guidelines. How many chemicals in Pasadena water that exceeds the health lines? There's 11 of them. The average for the nation is 4. And health standards exceeded is 0. And what's the difference? Anybody have an idea what that is? So one is health guidelines. One is a standard. So what is that saying to you?
It's got 11 more chemicals than it's supposed to.
Okay, well, okay, so thank you for having this dialogue with me. Okay, great. So this is really...
I think I know.
Okay. So communication is never perfect, right? The only way we know that we're getting actually the same thing is by dialoguing, right? Thank you, yes.
It has 11 pollutants that it shouldn't, and it has no chemicals to help eliminate the pollutants.
Okay, thank you so much. So this really helps us clear things. So what it actually says is that there are all kinds of chemicals in the environment, right? It's like tens and thousands of chemicals in the environment. Do we test all of them?
No.
No, we can't possibly test all of them. There's way too many. So we only test some of them, and do we have standards for all of them?
You could if you can't test them all.
No, we don't have standards for all of them at all. So we don't test them, we don't have standards for all of them. And other standards really are optimal for your health. Not necessarily. So that's what this chart is saying to you. What it's saying is that, so there are some of them have standards, even though the standards are not exceeded. In other words, you're allowed to have 5% of, I'm just exaggerating, right, percent of toxins in your drink. And that is legal, right? So then that's a legal limit. There's another limit that's what is optimum for you. What would be good for your health guidelines? So there are two different things. So health guidelines and standards. So your drinking water can be legal, but still be bad for you, unhealthy, all right? So even though, so they have tested, they found, they conducted all these tests and found 22 pollutants. There's no, none of the guidelines have been exceeded. So 0 exceeding standard guidelines, but 11 of them have exceeded the health guidelines. Does that make sense now? Right. So they found 22 chemicals. None of them exceeds the standards, but some of them, 11 of them have exceeded health guidelines. In other words, they don't think that's healthy for you. Right? And the national average is 4 exceeding the health guidelines. So compare it to the rest of the country in terms of their health guidelines, we're not doing so good in Pasadena. Okay. Next one, please. So here are actually some of the chemicals that have been tested. So the red dot shows exceeding legal limits. So you can see that none of them, there's no red dots there. But yellow dots is exceeding health limits. So you see lots of yellow dots, right? So you might just want to sort of take a real quick look and take a picture and put it in your memory and those chemicals. This is Pasadena. We're looking at just Pasadena right now. Yes, yes, chloroform. Mm-hmm. your special cocktail. Next one.
Is that arsenic on the bottom?
Yes. Arsenic is one of the very common contaminants found in drinking water. So then we're looking at Glendale. So once again, so we have Glendale is a little worse than Pasadena. So 18 chemicals exceeding health guidelines, and 3 of them actually exceeding standards.
So it's even worse.
They're a little worse. Next one. So here are the specifics. So the red ones are showing you where it's gone. So each dot represents 1 month, right? Data from 1 month. And again, I want you to sort of look at the top ones. Take a mental picture of all of them, but we're going to focus for a little while for just the top ones.
What's that very, very tall one say for the word? Try something else?
It's coral.
Trihalomethanes.
And we're going to actually look at that.
Must be that one.
Next one, please. And here's Los Angeles. Again, same thing, right? So that everybody's familiar with the rows and columns now of this table. Next one, please. So again, they have a bunch of exceeding. Yes?
There's also a discrepancy between the amount of number of tests conducted and versus
Yes.
the national average. Is that part of this issue in terms of how much has been done?
Yeah, definitely. It will be part of the issue. Depends how much testing we do.
They've
Yeah.
done very different.
A number, yeah, because depending on the funding and different, all kinds of issue comes in, right? So next one, please. So to understand some of the top ones that have been showing up in Los Angeles, in Pasadena, and Glendale, we have to understand how we clean our water. How do we treat our water? So when we get water from nature, what do we do to make it safe for us to drink, right? So what we do is we put some chemicals in it, so that would sort of combine with the stuff that flows in the water and make it sink to the bottom. And once it sinks to the bottom, we put it through a filtration. Once it gets through a filtration, we disinfect it. And we disinfect it with, does anybody know what? Chlorine. Good job, right? Good for you. You guys, all right, with chlorine, good for you. So, next one, please. The problem is with this water we get from the state project, the state water project, it contains a lot of bromine ions, and that comes from the agricultural runoff, from the stuff that we use in agriculture. And when we get that water, we treat it with chlorine. What it does, it forms bromate, which is carcinogenic. Yes?
I had 3 miscarriages living in Pasadena.
Sorry.
I'm like, wow. Unbelievable.
Sorry. So the PWP has been asked by the state to lower this level. And notice what that says. So maximum contaminant goal is also abbreviated as MCGL usually, and that is set as 0. And what does that mean? That means even a little bit in it is really, really bad for you. Right? So the state's has asked Pasadena to lower that level, and how can we do that? Remember, how do we treat our water? All we do is do what? Make this stuff floating, combine with chemicals so they settle, and we filter that out and we treat it with chlorine. Does it take out bromine ions? No. Does it take out any of some of you who were here last time, the endocrine disruptors? No. So then, how do we reduce the level? How can we reduce the level? And we have different sources of water. We have water coming from Colorado River. We have water coming from the state water project. We have water coming from Owens Valley. And we have water coming from the ground, from our groundwater. The only way that we can really lower this level is by using less state water project water.
Using less state water project.
Yeah, we drink a whole cocktail of water from different places. And the only way we can lower this is by using more groundwater or more Colorado River water.
But I think some of the basins here are kind of dry.
That they are what?
Dry.
They are dry right now. The thing about groundwater is that 40%, now is only 35% of the water we use, that we drink from Pasadena is from the ground. This water has been accumulated here for thousands of years in the past. It's not a reflection of current weather conditions, but a reflection of past weather conditions.
So deep water, some kind of deep well.
In the groundwater, well, that's one issue, that's one way. So we're going to keep looking at all the different issues one at a time. But that's one piece of it. Next, please. Now, this is from the EPA. So what I've listed is EPA, the disinfection byproducts is regulated by the EPA. Are the lists the same?
I think the same from what?
From the one that we had before.
No, the bottom one is
Go back to the previous slide. These are the byproducts that we have here in Pasadena. And next one is the one that's regulated by the EPA. They're not the same. So again, legal water does not necessarily mean safe water. Next one, please. So we're going to look at Monrovia because Lisa said she was going to come and she lives in Monrovia, so I added Monrovia. So Monrovia actually has a, doesn't look so bad, yeah, compared to Pasadena. So you feel better now? Good. So, and the next one, please. So here are the ones that are found in Monrovia. So again, they actually have times that is exceeding legal limit. And you see several of them that says, like, any level is legal because there's no standard set for them at all. Right? So once again, I want you to take a picture and look at the chemicals that are in them. Because what I've done is I grouped them into two groups. So first we looked at the disinfection byproduct by function of water treatment. Now I'm looking at something else. Next one, please. So Alhambra, so very similar story. So, so once again, pay attention.
Like these industrial, these small industries, plating companies, and the this and the that, Lockheed, or all of these. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that.
There are lots of stuff.
Right?
Actually, a Superfund site, does everybody know what a Superfund site is?
Bad news.
One of the biggest Superfund sites is here, is groundwater contamination. So next one, please. Arcadia. So again, we exceed the national average in terms of chemicals that exceeds health guidelines. Next one, please. So again, notice the top ones. Next one, please. Monterey Park. Monterey Park is not doing so good. Next one, please. So we got arsenic coming up again. Next one, please. So what I've done was I try to pull out the ones that are common to all the cities that we looked at in this area. So first we look at the disinfectant ones as like Pasadena, Glendale, and Los Angeles, but all those cities also have the following three contaminants. Right? So I'm gonna. So what you're looking at is actually a building that was a metal degreasing building, so they've been contaminating the groundwater, and this is a team from USGS trying to drill and pull out the samples from the ground to study the extent of groundwater contamination. And what's interesting was also I wanted to find some products that contain them. So I looked up like products for degreasing products, and they all advertise they're being green, safe degreasing products, but they do not list their ingredients. I thought it was really interesting. So next one, please. So here's another one that's in all the cities that we looked at. And one of the sources is from dry cleaning.
Perchlorate. It's called perchlorate.
No, this is different from perchlorate.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
How does that get into the water?
It gets from industry and also dry cleaning. So the chemical they use in dry cleaning, when they're done, it gets back into the system.
And then there's some dry cleaning places that say that they're more environmental.
Yeah, they all say that. They all say that. Once again, I try to say, okay, so what are you using? And nobody like tells you what they're really using. Yeah.
I should ask them.
You should ask them, if they could name the chemicals. So you have it right there. Tetrachloroethylene is the culprit. Next one, please.
So what do you do if you don't want to go to the dry cleaners and the clothing says, like sweaters, it must be dry clean?
Wash with cold water and block them.
Yeah. You can use full light too, right? The things that.
Gently squish them, don't want to get you very tender. Cold water, squish them, rinse them, and then just lay them out. And yeah, before you do it, you measure it out, measure the shoulders and the length and the sleeves.
What do you use for cleaning agent?
Well, yeah, running a mile or so.
A mile or so?
Even
Very good.
draft is good.
Good. Thank you. And next one, please. So a nitrate comes from agriculture. And so here's a satellite photograph, and you can see the dark green shows up the nitrates that's going into our water system. And next one, please. So I don't know if you also noticed, this is also from the EPA, what's being regulated. You notice there's alpha particle in the drinking water also. And that's from radium from our ground. So our groundwater has its own issues, right? So surface water from the state projects got issues. Groundwater's has got its issues, right? So even if you mix a cocktail, you're just mixing different kinds of chemicals that you're drinking, different problems, yeah. Choose your poison, right? Next one. So I'm also, this is again EPA, I'm just using very, very conservative information, and all of you can sort of go look about that information on your own. Here's the website. Yes?
Is bottled water better?
Well, that's our next thing.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you for bringing that up. So this is exactly what we're going into. Thank you. Thank you. Next one, please. So it's bottled the next thing. Obviously, most of the people think so. If you look at the sales of bottled water, right, it's gone. In fact, this is the latest chart that I was able to find. So I like to find graphic information. So this is it's gone a lot higher in 2007 and 2008. It was close to 9 billion gallons of water. So obviously, people think this is the solution, right? So next slide is, well, take a look at this chart and tell me, do you think that is the solution? I don't know how well you can see it.
No, not required. Disinfection.
And you pay for that. You pay more than you pay for gas. You pay for this, right? So, and some of you, if you calculate the cost of bottled water, it's more expensive than gasoline. Now, some of you were here last time with us. We talked about, so the difference is also drinking water from your town is regulated by the EPA, by the water department, right? So lots of laws regulating it. They do have standards for them. But bottled water is not governed by the same agency. Bottled water is governed by the FDA. Some of you were here when I communicated my conversation with the officer from FDA, yeah? Basically, what they said, someone who was here last time?
You're talking about how he got back to you?
Yeah. Basically, they don't test and they don't know what's in anything. In fact, there's one person in the entire country who's in charge of bottled water, and that is only one of his jobs. And nobody does any testing, so no one really knows what's in bottled water.
Did they put something in bottled water to make it taste better? Because my preference is that it tastes better than tap water.
They might taste better to you, and it could be psychological. I'm not saying that is the case. People have done a lot of blind testing. People really can't tell the difference between. They think they can, but the tests are showing that most people can't tell the difference. And one of my favorite story is that this one company, he sinks a well next to a parking lot, which is next to a Superfund site. And he takes that water and he bottles it and sells it under 10 different brand names.
It's legal, right? What he's doing.
It's totally legal. Well, actually, it's not. There's a lot of issues like who owns the water. And does anybody, if you don't own the land or you own the water in the ground, can you just pump it and sell it? Actually, Coca-Cola, big companies like that, in a lot of lawsuits with many different residents, like I think it's Minnesota, Coca-Cola's, Michigan, they're pumping groundwater and the people's wells are drying up, farmlands are becoming non-productive, and they just go back and forth in the courts, and then just keep pumping that water out, bottling it, selling it, and shipping it back to Michigan. And they continue to win the law cases in court. And they make billions of dollars.
You know, bottled water, like outside of Longer Pine Crystal Geyser, I mean, you would not go backpacking without treating the water that you're drinking from the streams for Giardia. Giardia, right? But you can buy that and they don't have to do anything to it.
Exactly. Let me see.
Backpacking and not treat that water. Filter it before I drink it.
You know,
Let me see.
Geyser.
Let me see. It's in the next slide. Let me see.
Oh, yeah.
Here it is. Is that the one you're talking about?
It's in a very remote location. It's not like.
So they advertise what? Mountain spring water. They are
Alpine.
Sorry, Alpine. Sorry.
It is a lot of
No, not at all.
Snow runoff.
They actually are pumping it from the ground. They're not just even taking it on the surface. And I put it right next to Owen's dry lake bed, which is on the edge of dry lake bed. You've driven by it many times. You've seen it, right? It's right next to the dry lake bed, and they're pumping it out of the ground. So we have diverted water from Owens Valley. We've dried this lake nearly 100 years ago. And within 10 years of diverting water to Los Angeles, this lake went bone dry. It was huge. Legal battles are still going on, but they are still pumping water from the ground in the same area. So a lot of really ancient trees are actually dying because the ground level water is lowering because we're pumping out the groundwater, both taking it to Los Angeles and bottling it, selling it. And I've called them so many times, can I come and have a tour of your plant? Because we go on field trips there all the time. They never answer my phone call. They don't answer emails. They don't answer anything.
Plus the lake bed's very polluted.
It's very polluted. So they used to grow food there. So that lake bed is completely filled with all kinds of chemicals, from fertilizers, and it's going into the ground. They're pumping it and selling it to you.
It doesn't taste good. I mean, I don't like it.
So according to Pacific Institute, that we use 6.84 billion gallons of water in bottled water in 2006. And what that means, they've done the calculation, what that means it translates into 9,000 tons of plastic was required to bottle that much water. And then in order for the energy, I'm not talking about the material that make the plastic, just the energy that's required to make that plastic consumes 17 million barrels of oil. We're not including transportation, just the amount of energy that's required to produce the bottles themselves. Next one.
You mean petroleum? Because plastic has petroleum in it too.
Yeah, but we're not counting any of that. We're just counting the energy that's required. And that amount of energy put this much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And in order to make 6.86 billion gallons of water, we take a lot more water because making the bottles takes water. All the processing takes water. So for each bottle of water, you're looking at 3 times as much of water being consumed. So the total amount of water being consumed is really 20.6 million. It's billion. It's a mistake. Billion gallons. And what I've done is to translate that into something that we can relate to, 20-something billion gallons of water, what's that mean? So what I did is I translated into an acre foot. Does everybody know what an acre foot is? Can you tell us?
An acre foot is a foot squared, so a foot long miles a foot. Length by width. That's what it is. Length by width. We're talking about volume.
Okay, thank you. It's volume. You're absolutely right. So what an acre foot is an acre of land filled with a foot of water. So I try to translate it into an acre foot. An acre of land filled with a foot of water. So a football field is about 1.3 acre. So I try to convert it into it. So what that means is, again, it's billion and not million, billion of gallons. It would cover 48,608,000 football fields with 1 foot of water. That was the amount of water that was consumed in producing bottled water in 2006. Yeah.
Would it help to boil our water? Like
yes, it would.
Used to do?
Yes, it would. So a big group of chemicals are called volatile organic compounds, like the dry cleaning chemicals. And if you boil them, they're volatile. So if you boil them, they actually goes into the air. No, that's the reality that we have to deal with. You're absolutely right. So next one, please. Hit it again, and it will show the whole thing. Okay. So, so I know this is not a class, but what I really like to is get everybody's having a conversation and really start thinking about the things that we've looked at and talking about. So what I really like you to do is talk to your neighbors and what do you get from this picture? What do you think I'm trying to say here? What do you get from this? Or what have you gotten from our conversation so far this morning? Like really, I'm really interested for all of us to really start having a conversation and really start thinking about these issues. Right? So what do you get from this visual, or what do you get from this discussion we've had so far?
Plastics are not going away.
By the way, this is not in some third world country. This is the mouth of Los Angeles River. Where it comes out of Long Beach. Huh?
All that junk is floating in the water.
This is the LA River.
Especially when it rains.
Yeah. So the plastics aren't going away. So when you make them, and it's actually worse than not going away because they don't biodegrade, but they photodegrade. What that means, they break down into little pieces, and they get into your food chain. So and then you eat it. Yes. So what else? Yes?
And if you do well, obviously that tells me that some people aren't doing their part in recycling. So if you do your part in recycling, shouldn't that contribute to something better?
Thank you for bringing up recycling. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I was sitting on a jury one time, and I learned a lot. It was about environmental crime. So recycling doesn't really work because the plastic, when you melt the plastic, to recycle the plastic, 1 ton of plastic costs $4,000. And the material you get sells for $32.
So there's not much incentives.
So even though, so what happened in the crime case, it was really interesting. Some people got really smart about it. They know, hey, there's a problem here. So even when the government collects it in the recycling center, they don't deal with it. They sell it to people for like dirt cheap because they don't want to deal with it. So they just went and buy it, and they take it back to the recycling center, and around, they were making millions and millions of dollars. And I found out there's huge divisions, federal, state, and city in environmental crime. They're not going out checking on people, oh, are you polluting? They're checking out how you're cheating the system, right? And not about, policing at all. Actually no funding, no way of policing people in terms of really illegally dumping things. So that's really sad. Good job! Ooh, let's start! See, this is
force them to put them in different containers.
This is why, good for you. This is why we want to have this conversation. We need to talk some more. Let's have a PCC fantastic organization.
When I was around the time my brother was born, 96, I lived in Arcadia. There was a big lawsuit in Arcadia against a whole bunch of companies that were dumping into Arcadia's water supply, and that's still going on. And my family joined that lawsuit because my mom came here from North Dakota, and then as soon as she came here, she developed a heart murmur, and we're not sure why, and we think it might be in the water. And then my brother also has a heart murmur from birth, and when all this was happening, the polluting, that was when my brother was born. So we don't know if it correlates to anything, but we were part of the lawsuit, and that's still going on. I mean, there's still I think 2 more companies, really large corporations that are in court right now for that same joint lawsuit. So that was happening.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Yeah, it's still going on. Absolutely, right? So what else? What do you get from this? Is it really possible to have crystal clean drinking water if the world is really polluted?
Very difficult.
It's actually impossible. You can't get that out of the corners, out of this. You just can't. That's just the unfortunate reality.
But you know, even before plastic and all this, I mean, water was never tested 200-300 years ago. I'm sure it was probably just as bad. They didn't have certain chemicals in there. Probably had more lead or some other things in there. You know, but I don't think water was ever 100% clean.
Well, there's a different kind of clean. There's a different kind of clean if you're drinking something there's like all kinds of bacteria in it. Your body immediately throws it out. And you know you're sick, right? And this is still happening all over the world. But when you're drinking radioactive particles, when you're drinking tetrachloroethylene, your body don't throw it out, and you don't get sick immediately, which is actually worse.
Exactly. It's in the system.
And a lot of those effects they were looking higher risk of cancer, right? So do you feel that? Do you feel, oh, I got cancer growing, I better go do something about it? No, you don't. So which is worse? Right? Next one, please. So I showed this last time for those who were here. So this is an estimation of what 1,000 looks like, right? So how many thousands of football fields can we fill with 1 foot of water?
48.
All right, 48,000, right? So visualize that. And how many endocrine disruptors are out there? The EPA suspect over 15,000. 15 times of this. How many chemicals do we actually test?
Not all of them.
Less than 300. Right? And how many do we actually regulate? Less than half of that. Next one, please. So when you see a picture like this, what do you feel? Refresh, right? Next one, please. So is the rainwater actually clean? So the thing is, once again, if you make a mess in the world, you are not going to get clean drinking water. Next one, please. So here's some of the, I just list this actually from the textbook, some of the major sources of contamination. You know, people always want to know, so what can I do, right? You know, so, we're like screwed, what can we do, right? Well, stop drinking, ban plastic. So if you look at, before you can really figure out what you can do, you might want to look at what are the sources of the problems. Right? So what I really invite you to is really look at the source of the problems. And once again, what I really wanted to do is hear from you. What do you think you can do? Now, this is also a series, web series of 4. We started with what's in the food, today looking at what's in the water, then we're going to look at what's in your air, then at the end we're going to look at what's up with the planet, right? We really can't really start to talk about solution until we come out to, you know, the very end of the series, right? So in my view is the house is on fire. If the house is on fire, can you do 3 things and live in the same house and be okay?
Can you do 3 things?
Now people are always asking me, why don't you tell me 3 things I can do? If your house is on fire, can you do 3 things and stay living in that house that's on fire? That would make it stay.
Put the fire out first.
You're way too sensible. We gotta put out a fire. Now, you may or may not agree with me the house is on fire. This is why we're having this series, right? I'm sort of like sharing with you things I've learned. And once again, I'm only presenting very conservative information from the government, statistics from the government. Right? So what I'm really looking at is like to have a conversation when we go through this whole series, when we look at all the different pieces, and before we can really begin to see, well, I will let you decide whether the house is on fire or not. And once, if you recognize the house is on fire, do you think you would need somebody to tell you what you can do? I don't think so. I think you know what you need to do. First, you need to understand the house is on fire. But it's up to you to decide. And I really hope that you can continue this conversation. And then we actually forgive me, huh? Karen, that maybe we can do something like ban plastic or something like that, right? But in the meantime, I really like for you to talk to each other. What can we do? What are some things we can do? Just a couple minutes, please. Yes?
One of the things we can do is refuse to buy.
Good job. Refuse to buy. Refuse to buy what? Bottled water, that's a big piece. Thank you, right? A lot of cities have already taken action and banned bottled water. Some campuses ban bottled water. They cannot sell bottled water on their campus.
Cities have banned water.
Oh, yes. San Francisco, like the government, you cannot spend any government money and buy bottled water. So, like PCC would not be allowed to spend a penny on buying bottled water. Yeah.
You mentioned last time that you drink tap water.
I drink tap water. I do have water filter also. And Margaret was asking me, so if you go back to the Environmental Working Group website, they have a big resourcing on water, a database on water. They also have a big database on water filters. So you can type in your city, and they can recommend different kinds of water filter for you. And you can type in the toxins you want to deal with or chemicals you want to deal with. They recommend different filters. But if you look at the chart that we show from the EPA, they actually recommend to get rid of those toxins, you need a combined carbon, a filter, and a packed aeration tower. And I have not been able to figure out what that is or if it's available for homes. And I have clicked different websites and looked at recommended water filters. They don't look like they have a aeration tower to me at all. I have visited the Burbank site where they treat contaminated groundwater. What they do is they pull it out. They're looking at mostly the VOCs, the volatile organic compounds, including the tetrachloroethylene. What they do is they go through a different processes, and at the end, they have a packed aeration tower. What that means is a giant, 30 feet tube, and they run the water and they turn it like crazy, like agitate it like crazy, so to get the chemicals to come out of it. And they capture it and put it in a tank. And I asked them, where do you take them? They said, oh, some people come and pick them up. I said, so where do they go? We don't know. We just magic. They just can take it away. Exactly. Yes.
What was the website where you could go to get the filter information?
The Environmental Working Group.
Oh.
EWG.
That word? Okay.
That is, I don't remember. If you just type in Environmental Working Group, it comes right up. So talk to each other a few minutes, and I would really like to hear what are some of the things you say we can do. Actually, Donna's got a solution. We all should just start drinking vodka. So anybody wants to share what they sort of talked about, or I know this is not a class, but I'd really love to hear from you.
We were just talking.
Go ahead.
We were just talking about how the arts are really culpable.
The bad guys are here, guys.
Well, we are. I mean, we're using an enormous amount of energy for everything.
And an enormous amount of terrible chemicals. And consuming a lot of stuff, experimenting. I was looking at it from the perspective of trying to teach somebody, and it's like in teaching them, I encourage them to try something, and to try it, and to try it, and to draw it, and to draw it, and to draw it. Well, in my own professional practice, I avoid printing something until it's done. But I can't tell them not to print it until it's done, because they need to learn how to get it done. It's like there's this process of experimentation that is enormously consumptive, even separate from the issue of the materials we use and the energy we use. Just the idea of teaching somebody to get better at it is wasteful.
The process itself.
Just the process of teaching is wasteful.
It's just for the recording, because they can't hear you, is that we're saying that in the arts there's a lot of waste, and also in addition to using the chemicals, the process itself in getting perfect perfection in the process itself generates a lot of amount of waste. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, things that they're not going to be used for anything down the road, they're going to be disposed because the last document you get is the only one that you're going to keep.
Yeah.
But every step that you have to take along the way now is to be.
So before the end product is just a small percent of the tip of the iceberg of all the material that's being used. Absolutely.
You know, the first 200 pots you throw, or the first, 200 paintings you make, or whatever. It's like there's just like in the idea of getting somebody to do it over and over and over again to get it better. That's inherently wasteful, and yet that's fundamental to the idea of that.
Well, you first started with step one. Step one is recognizing there's a problem, yeah? That's a really important step, right?
Which has been in the minds of most of the people that work in our area. But the answer seems to be...
always somebody else's cover.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing to get hold of.
You're right, it's enormous, it's huge. We were looking at one piece at a time, you put all the pieces together, it's absolutely huge. The problems are very, very big, right? That's why most people are ignoring it, right? If it's easy, people will be doing it. People aren't doing it because it's not easy. Right?
Now, the other day, and I receive every day, but the other day I received the largest school catalog I have ever received. Without exaggeration, it was that thick. Mm. In my division, we received, I think, 100 of them.
Yeah, we each got one in our mailbox.
Right? And so all the art schools throughout the country must have received a catalog for each and every instructor that they have. You're talking about tons of paper that nobody would read. I mean, it went into a shelf or maybe it went into the... And that's not something that we produce.
It's a proprietary school. I'm not going to even give it to my students. Even if I were to give it to somebody, it would probably get wasted. But I'm not going to give it to anybody. It's a proprietary school that's just out there hustling.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And a lot of people have made a comment that we really need to go a lot less paper. Well, we really need to move towards paperless.
This very catalog is online. Mm-hmm. This is the paradox. I mean, you're at the cutting edge of technology and communication, and yet you're using a tool that is completely antiquated.
Do you have some suggestions of what we can do?
Well, I think we should write to them and tell them we will not send them any students as long as they continue to do this.
From where? Where did it come from?
Schools in another school.
From another school.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, write them a letter. Thank you very much, but please do not forward to me another catalog.
Oh, great. So would you guys be doing that? All right, okay. One thing we can do. All right, thank you. Woohoo! Thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
I can respond to that.
Yes.
It's really a system-wide symptom. If you look at anything, water, plastic, paper, electronics, anything that's created, the problem is you get a lot of excessive production because you don't take into account the cost of handling the material once it's done. You don't look at the whole life cycle of material. You look at the production cost, you look at the shipping cost, you don't look at the disposal cost when they sell anything. So that a lot of times it's taken upon by governments, which means the taxpayers have to pay it, which a lot of like the Superfund sites, that's where costs a lot of money. If it's been designed right in the first place, you don't have to worry about it. So with anything, you need to look at the cost of the impact it has, like with water, what is the cost, the actual cost, the true cost of something, the true cost of paper, the recycling, the production, everything, what's going to be done with it. And if you charge for people, if you actually charge them so it reflects the true cost of something, then they're not going to be as likely as wasteful, because it's really cheap to just print something and mail it, It costs them maybe $1 per catalog, probably not even that, to print it, send it out, ship it, and everything. But obviously that $1 doesn't truly represent the cost of the entire life cycle of the product.
So, and to make a long story short, it's education, really, that's what's important. The people, we're not putting the cost to the environment on our price tag. And the day when we do that, everything will change, absolutely, right? So thank you for bringing that up. And I just wanted to end with a personal story, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to share this. Actually, this is a number of years ago. Long story short, I was in the emergency room. My daughter had been unconscious for many hours. And the doctor told me, well, we've done everything we possibly can. You have two options. You can leave her here with us and we watch her overnight, or you can take her home because there's nothing else we can do. We've done everything. We have done a CAT scan of the brain. We have tested her blood. We have tested her urine. We've tested everything. There's nothing we can do. We found nothing. We have done a complete tox panel. So what would you do if you were in my situation? I asked them, what do you mean by a complete tox panel? They said, oh, we tested for heroin and amphetamine. She was 8 years old. So I freaked out. So they go, calm down. I said, what about all the environmental toxins? She goes to public school. I mean, they all kinds of stuff in the grass. To grow the grass, there's all kinds of stuff having to be there. Why don't you test all the environmental toxins? We can't do that. Why not? But there's just way too many of them. Now I ask you this: if they never test, if people died from all these toxins out there, would you ever know? Would it ever be documented?
Yeah, particularly with children.
Because they're sensitive, more sensitive than adults.
So once again, I'm leaving everybody very upset. And like I shared earlier, what I really wanted to do is have everybody really sort of, let's look at all the pieces, and you can come to your own conclusions. Is our house on fire? And I think if we get to that point, I think it'll be very clear. We all know what we can do and how we can do it.
What happened to your daughter?
Eventually, I had to diagnose it. I had to figure out she has a genetic condition. It's one of her genes is mutated, and when I asked you why do genes mutate? Yeah. So, and it was a long journey to finally figure out what was wrong with her. So she actually has 2 different genetic conditions that she would have to live with the rest of her life. So once again, I really thank you for your attention, and I hope that we continue to have this conversation, because ultimately what we really want to see something we can do, right? What are some of the things that we can do? And ultimately for the ones of us who have come together, because one person can't do anything. One person can make all the difference, but one person needs all the other person to be working together to make a difference. Does that make sense? It seems to be paradoxical. Yes?
But like for example, our air conditioning, that's very toxic.
That's our next topic, what's in your air. So tune in.